Hello, everyone. Hi, folks. All right, let's just give it a minute here for everyone to join us in the virtual room. Okay, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening, this afternoon. I'm Rachel with the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. We are so excited to have Jessica Cisneros running for Congress in Texas's very blue 28th district. You might have seen a headline in The Nation that described Jessica as the future of the Democratic Party, and you'll see why tonight. Before we dive in, actually, it's been so long since we've been in a room together. So if everyone could just quickly unmute themselves for a second, and let's just all say hi. Let's all say hi quickly to Jessica and each other. Can everyone unmute themselves for a second, please?
Hi, Jessica. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi,
Jessica.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome. We need you.
Hola.
Hola.
All
Thank you
right,
for doing
awesome. Thank you all. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's go ahead. Folks, if your cameras aren't on, please go ahead and turn your cameras on. I see a lot of folks that have been to many of these, and some are new for the first time. Regardless, thank you for being here. So when you have a question for Jessica, please go ahead and just type it into the chat. My colleague Nick will let you know when we're coming to you. We're going to try and keep this short and sweet. Jessica's 11 days out. We want to be respectful of her time and, of course, of everyone else's schedule as well. So bear with me with questions, please, but we will try to get to as many as we can. And so, you know, folks, while we've designed these events to be free, we really do hope that if you find yourself feeling inspired by what you hear from Jessica tonight, that you will consider chipping into her campaign. And she'll tell you why that's so critical at this point in the home stretch. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to our co-founder, Dr. Stephanie Taylor.
Thanks, Rachel, and hello, everybody. I'm so glad to see everybody tonight, to be here with you. And I am so excited to introduce tonight Jessica Cisneros, who is on the cusp of a historic victory. She is running for Congress in Texas's 28th congressional district, and her election, as Rachel said, is 11 days out. Now, you're probably pretty familiar with Jessica at this point, but just a quick introduction. She's a human rights lawyer. She's the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants. She is a fantastic person and candidate. I can't wait for you to hear from her. But first, let me just say a few words about her opponent, Henry Cuellar. So Henry Cuellar is the current Democratic congressman for the district, which is a deep blue district on the border of South Texas. He is one of the most conservative members of Congress. He is anti-choice, he is anti-labor, he is pro-NRA. He voted with Donald Trump and the Republicans almost 70% of the time. He is the fourth biggest recipient in the House of oil and gas campaign contributions. McClatchy called him Big Oil's favorite Democrat. He is opposed to the Green New Deal. And in negotiations over the Build Back Better Act, he lobbied the Senate to drop the methane fee. So that's the current congressman. And then we have Jessica. Jessica, who has worked with various legal aid organizations in Laredo to stop families from being separated at the border. She's defended asylum seekers. She's running for Congress on a platform that includes Medicare for all and a Green New Deal. So she would be a very different, very positive kind of representative for this deep blue district, a huge step forward, the future in terms of the kind of representatives we want to see in Congress making decisions that are so critical right now for our health, for our climate, for our economy. So Jessica ran first in 2020 against Henry Cuellar. She came within 3,000 votes of beating him in the primary. She's running against him again. I think she's going to win. I can't wait for you to hear what she has to say. So now let me please give a very warm welcome to Jessica Cisneros.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Really excited. I'm really grateful to have your support again, because you were part of our coalition last time around. And as you might recall, we earned 48.2% of the vote, which was a really huge feat just because Cuellar has been very entrenched in South Texas politics for a very long time. Not just his time in Congress, but I think a lot of folks forget that he used to be the Texas Secretary of State under Rick Perry. He also was in the Texas House. So he's literally been in office longer than I've been alive. But at the same time, we also, we're recognizing the fact that he was very out of step with the values of our district and that our seat is very blue and that we actually deserve someone who is going to be working on behalf of the people in our community and not, Republican corporate interests the way that Cuellar has been doing so. As Stephanie mentioned, I'm an immigration and human rights attorney. I decided to do that kind of work because I myself am the daughter of Mexican immigrants. And I recognize that a policy change, it was actually the Immigration Reform Act of 1986 that gave my parents their shot at the American dream. There was a pro bono attorney that helped them out as they were trying to navigate, their pathway to permanent residence in this country. So when I grew up, coming from this beautiful bicultural area of the country, I wanted to be that person for so many other families like mine, which is why I decided to do this work. And then, 2 years ago, when I decided to run for Congress, I was a 26-year-old first-time candidate, but I decided to go forth and go for it because my community needed someone to stand up against Cuellar. And if they believed in me, I owed it to them to believe in myself too. And obviously folks responded because I think we asked people to envision the impossible last time around, taking on someone like Cuellar, very much David versus Goliath, but to come 2,700 votes away from winning just shows that there is appetite for change on the ground and that we know that we deserve better, that we deserve someone who, instead of voting against the Women's Health Protection Act, is actually going to be out there fighting for our reproductive freedom. That instead of, siding with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Koch brothers, we're going to have someone who's going to fight to get the PRO Act passed and try to fight for labor legislation, right? Someone that's actually going to stand up to big oil and fight for a Green New Deal and solutions that are actually going to address the climate crisis and the scope and magnitude that we need to. So that's why I think a lot of folks didn't realize how strong our campaign was going to be, because we are able to speak to the challenges that South Texans face because, well, I'm somebody who has lived them herself. So we are, as of today, 11 days away from the start of early vote. I'm sure y'all heard what happened with Congressman Cuellar a couple of weeks ago. He was in the news because both his house and campaign headquarters were raided by the FBI. Even before this, we knew that we had a really good chance of taking the seat because of the overwhelming response that we've received from voters in the district. But this is our chance, to take advantage of this opportunity that we have, that this FBI raid, we still don't know what's going on exactly, but it's a symptom of the corruption kind of that Cuellar has allowed himself to be influenced by since the moment he stepped in Congress and started fighting for those Republican corporate interests instead of our community here at home. So I think we also recognize the fact, just like Cuellar does, that he's in the fight for his political life right now, and he's sitting on $2.3 million in the bank, which, I mean, we anticipate him using all of his money, and that's fine, but we have the momentum on our side, and we don't have to go dollar for dollar with him because we have people on our side that are going to put in the work to make sure that we're turning out voters everywhere in our district. So while he has his money, we have our people, and I really hope that we can count on you for both, support in terms of like going out there, knocking on doors or phone banking, or, chipping in whatever you can. Last time around, we were able to nickel and dime our way to a $2 million race with an average contribution of like $27 or $30. And it was because it was everyday people that, just like I answered the call to run, y'all answered the call to support this campaign. So thank you so much for, being in this fight with us, because it really means a lot to us here in Texas 28.
Thank you, Jessica. And Jessica, there are folks in the chat saying, I'm gonna text me, I'm gonna do texting, I'm gonna call, join me, and rallying others. So folks, thank you. Okay, so let's dive into questions. We have a bunch in the queue, and we are gonna kick it off with Neela Patel joining us from California. Neela, what is your question for Jessica?
Jessica, thank you so much for running and for being with us here today. My question is, how are you organizing on the ground to connect with voters?
Well, it's really interesting because I think our strategy had to change a little bit from last time around since we are currently still in a pandemic. So our race last time ended on, our election was on March 3rd, 2020. So we didn't have the experience of running a campaign like this in the middle of a pandemic. So the good thing is that we had already trained a lot of our volunteers, especially here on the ground as well, how to do phone banking, which was this time, that's our #1 primary way to get in contact with voters, because we're trying to do this as safely as possible. We're still going to try to knock on doors. We've been already training volunteers to really stay a very safe distance away from the doors so that we don't expose anyone to COVID. But this time around, we've been relying a lot on phone banking. And I think our phone bank from Sunday, we were able to make 14,000 calls into the district, which is just phenomenal. And I think it's unprecedented, the kind of outreach that we're doing just based on volunteers, and something that we're looking forward to continue to cultivate, because I mean, yes, our big win is going to be, winning here on March 1st, but there's so much work to do. And I've always said that, like, if we ever want to flip Texas, the pathway to turning Texas blue has to run through South Texas, and doing that voter engagement, especially here on the border where we have a lot of counties that have lower voter turnouts compared to other areas of the state. So that's something that gets me really excited, because I think this is, like, I don't want to say a test run, but really is going to be a testament to how effective this kind of organizing can be here in South Texas. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Neela. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, up next, Phil Villers. Mr. Villers, I believe you sent in a question for Jessica around immigration. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask her the question, Phil?
Thank you. Jessica, like you, I care a lot about how we treat immigrants. Would like to know what you think you might accomplish in Congress in going back to a system which respects human rights and eliminates the awful abuses under Trump.
Absolutely. So in this area, like, obviously it's my time to shine. Like, I love talking about immigration policy because it's actually one of the most complicated areas or bodies of law, second only to tax law by a lot of legal experts. So I'm really glad that I have both the professional and personal experience of being an immigration attorney born and raised on the border. Because not only do I see the theoretical parts of, like, what laws can mean, but then also I see the consequences and, like, these immigration laws in play here along the border. I think for me, it's really important to think about not just about the legislative fixes or, like, the proposals, the pieces of legislation I could put forth, but also using my platform to very much amplify ways that the administration, work in tandem with the administration to try to find executive fixes to our current immigration system. I think one of the things that we absolutely need to work on is repealing a lot of the Trump relics from the Trump administration, policies such as the Remain in Mexico program and Title 42, because what that's causing is essentially these migrant camps to start forming on the other side of the border, and we're putting a lot of migrants at risk. I've actually dedicated a significant part of my caseload after the election trying to work with these migrant families that were stuck on the other side of the border. And if I could, it's really heartbreaking to hear a lot of the harm and violence that they're facing on the Mexican side right now. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that our policies are not being followed. I think the US, we have to recognize that we have international treaty obligations. We have pieces of legislation such as the 1980 act involving the asylum that need to be followed. And because we're not doing that right now, we're seeing this hyperfixation, especially from Republicans, trying to spin this as to, there's chaos on the border and the border is a problem area that needs to be dealt with, when the reality is, especially as someone who is from here, we can tell you that migration has been happening here for such a long time. So I think we need to be really smart about how we're going to be fixing the way that people are coming to seek asylum here, because right now it's absolutely not working. And all we're doing is giving Republicans talking points to use this area of the country to attack Democrats and also use us as a political football.
Thank you, Phil, for the question. Very important question. Jessica, thank you. Okay, up next, we have a question coming in from Facebook, Jessica, from Michaela. Jessica, Michaela asks, did the COVID-19 pandemic show any major flaws in our healthcare system? And if so, what would you do to help improve our healthcare system?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, I think that especially for a lot of folks here in South Texas, there was a point during the summer of 2020 where we became a hotspot, both here in Laredo and in the Rio Grande Valley. And it was so isolating and painful for many reasons, obviously, because the sheer amount of lives that we lost, like so many of our loved ones in the community, family members, friends, people that we know, passing away. And I think it was especially painful that we couldn't mourn in the way that we usually do, because we all had to be isolated, right? We couldn't be there for our families and friends in their time of need and loss. And I know that a huge part of that, the reason why we saw such a huge number of deaths in our area is the fact that we didn't even have, the average medical infrastructure to be able to deal with a surge in COVID. I know no place in the United States really had, the capacity to deal with it. But just for example, here in Laredo, there's like a lot of need for medical infrastructure. For example, we have only, a few handful of doctors for a city that has 300,000 people. Right. So like, of course, there was no way that we were going to be able to effectively try to treat people and save lives here during the COVID-19 pandemic. So for me, I mean, before this pandemic, healthcare was already the #1 issue throughout the entire district. Like wherever you went, whether it be in Live Oak, whether it was in La Grulla in the Rio Grande Valley, whether it was here in Laredo or in Zapata, or in the rural parts of the district, people would bring up healthcare, right? It was whether their prescriptions were too high or they couldn't afford their insulin or they were just simply uninsured. It was the #1 issue. And I think that that is true even more so now after we've seen, what a pandemic can do and the devastation it could cause. That's why for me, it was always a #1 priority to fight for Medicare for all, because it's not right that we can't save our loved ones because we can't afford their care, or that we have to constantly be crossing into Mexico to get any kind of treatment. And that was something that I saw even during the pandemic, where people, risked their life and like left and went to Mexico to try to get the care that they needed, because the hospitals here were saturated and they were costing tens of thousands of dollars just for, to go to the emergency room. So I think for me, that just really stressed the importance of fighting for a single payer healthcare system that would more adequately be responsive to something as a medical emergency such as the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Up next, we have Miss Diana Smith. Miss Diana, you sent in a question in the chat. Would you like to unmute yourself, Miss Diana, and ask Jessica your question, please? Diana, you're muted. Diana, you're still on mute. Okay.
Hi.
Oh, there you go. We can hear you. There you go.
Sorry, my mouse isn't working properly. I basically asked, with all the voter suppression that's going on in Texas, the rejection of absentee ballots and so forth, are there ways to cure those once they've been rejected, or do you just have to eat it?
Something that we've been doing, and we're happy to help you out if this is something that you're facing yourself, of know other people in the district that are facing this issue, is that we've been calling people that we've interacted with as the campaign and have checked in and called them, texted them, trying to figure out if they need help requesting their absentee ballot, because we have noticed, obviously it was in the news of how many people have been getting rejected when they've been requesting their mail-in ballots. So what we do is that if the person says, yes, I need help requesting my mail-in ballot, we'll have one of our organizers or volunteers walk them through the process to ensure that they're going to be able to request the ballot correctly and not, minimize the chances that it's going to get rejected. So that's something that we're doing because we want to make sure that everyone that wants to vote can vote in spite of this terrible, bill that came from the Texas legislature.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Great. Jessica, thank you. Okay, let's keep them rolling. Okay, up next, we have a question from Adam Broad. Adam, what's your question for Jessica?
Okay, my question is, what remedies do you propose for climate emergency, and what's the path to implement that or those?
Yes, I mean, one of the things that we're running on, right, to transition into a renewable economy through the Green New Deal. It's been really fun talking about this here in South Texas, because I think, the common myth or wisdom is that, Texas is oil and gas country and we'll never want to transition into renewable energy. But the reality is that for people here, it actually, they recognize that climate change is real, that we have to do something to address it. And why not address it with a jobs program? That's what we talk about when we talk about the Green New Deal, how we can create jobs here, especially in South Texas, where we have a lot of wind, where we have a lot of sun, where we have the Rio Grande River right at our disposal. And something that we've been talking about along the campaign trail is that one of our endorsers, both last time and this time around, is the Texas AFL-CIO. And the reason why we're able to get their support was because, I saw my role in, this big plan of transitioning, into a green economy as to being the voice for, oil and gas workers, Texas being, one of those states that relies a lot on the industry, and making sure that our workers don't get left behind. Because I understand, as someone that has come from a household where you weren't sure if the bills were going to get paid when I was growing up and my parents were struggling financially, I know what it's like to have that anxiety of not being sure if you're going to be able to provide for your family. And I think that's the reason why there's so many people that are very hesitant, right, to embrace this this opportunity that we have to transition into renewable energy. But if we're able to do everything we can to address, these hesitancies, tell people that we're not going to leave them behind, that we're actually centering this policy around workers, that is probably going to be the most effective way that we can move forward. Because otherwise, I don't think it's realistic to think that we're going to be able to transition this without workers' buy-in. So the Texas AFL-CIO has started working on the Texas Climate Jobs Project, which is an amazing project. If y'all are on social media, on Twitter, look it up, because right now they're taking feedback as to what the priorities of this project should be, which is an exciting very first step into what Texas's role, especially as like I said, an oil and gas state, what our role is going to be like as we're talking about workers in this transition into a renewable economy. So it's really exciting stuff that's happening. And thank you so much for your question, because we need to talk about this and engage with this conversation. If not, this transition is not going to happen.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, we're going to sneak in one more question. Jessica, Glorine sent in a question and she said, "Win, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. We need you. What do you need from us?"
I need as much support as we can get, whether that be, chipping in, like I said, whatever you can to this campaign, whether that be volunteering your time. You can go online. Our website is jessicacisneros.com. My last name is Cisneros. We're going to be dropping the links here on the chat. This is a people-powered campaign. We obviously can't do this work without people. And I've always said this, the reason why we've been so successful isn't because, I was able to do this by myself, but because we have such an awesome coalition behind us, and that obviously includes you. So thank you so much for asking that question. That's my favorite kind of question, because especially right now, like I said, we have 11 days before the election, and we need to maximize our time to make sure that we're reaching as many voters as possible so that we can win on March 1st.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to our co-founder, Stephanie Taylor, to share a few last thoughts about why we need Jessica.
I think you all, excuse me, I think you all heard why we need Jessica. And thank you to everyone for these great questions, and to Jessica for your very thoughtful answers. I really hope that you all saw what a wonderful, thoughtful, and transformative leader she would be in Congress. As you just heard, please do chip into this race and volunteer if you have a chance. There's links in the chat. The Progressive Change Campaign Committee will also be sending out links to allow you to connect with volunteer opportunities and opportunities to contribute. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you have to rush off because you've got 11 days until voting starts, but any final thoughts you'd like to share with our members tonight?
I just want to say thank you. I've been telling people around, that have interacted with the campaign, my staff, everyone who volunteers, just thank you. You're going to hear me say that not just until the election day, but after, because I truly recognize that this is, again, a collective effort, and I wouldn't be here, running this campaign as successful as we have been without people like you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Folks, we are going to let Jessica run off in just 1 second, but before we do, can everyone unmute themselves, and can we all say bye and give a cheers and a woohoo to all of us and to Jessica, and let's all say bye to each other.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You, Jessica.
Well done.
Bye.
Well done.
Bye, Jessica.
You'll do
Go
it.
for it.
Woo! Thank you.
You on the campaign trail.
Thanks. All right, folks, be well. We will see you next Thursday. Thank you, everyone, so much. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, Phil.
Bye.
Bye.